Today, we welcome Lindsay Jill Roth. Thank you, Lindsay, for being on the Collective Institute of Ideas. Such a pleasure to have you on. To give an introduction, Lindsay is an award-winning TV producer working on live events. She's worked for huge networks, including NBC, ESPN, the Grammys. She's also the former producer of the Emmy-nominated series Larry King Now, as well as the author of some incredible books, which we'll talk about, naming the latest, which is Romance and Practicalities. Lindsay, you've been involved in telling so many different stories. What does storytelling give you?
Thank you so much for having me on. We all have stories. We all tell stories. We all live stories. And what I love to do is find the story in anything. I started my career in radio, actually, which is funny because it's a lot like podcasting. It's full circle, right? So started telling stories where you could hear them but not see them, then moved into TV, then moved into books. And I just find I'm always listening for the story in something. And I like to find the avenue to make it great.
Because there's two parts that are quite interesting. One is, and you talked about it a bit in the past, but giving to people and how that's really important to you. And there's so much around storytelling, how it gives to people, but also it links to your curiosity, right? This desire to learn more. How do you feel storytelling serves people generally?
When I was a kid, I was a terrible history student, for example. And I just think, had I had teachers who taught me history like the story that it was, like the movies that we see, I think I would have become more ultimately knowledgeable and more receptive to what was being taught. And so that's what I think the power is of that day-to-day storytelling. Again, not to live in the clouds. Not every moment can be a story. But hey, what's the story that you and I are getting to tell today? And how cool is it that we can create magic for ourselves and someone else listening to maybe inspire them to try something new or do something different?
Have there been certain stories that you feel really move you and have attached you to becoming the best version of yourself today? Some kind of themes that you really feel attached to?
It's funny. I was initially drawn to talk radio, Larry King, talk TV, interviews, real things. And so I guess it all boils down to communication, really, which actually is what my book is about. No one's ever asked me this question in a way that makes sense for my personal through line. But if you think about it, talk radio to talk TV. But as I've gotten older, I realize that when I was younger and telling stories with celebrities or on a TV show or something that was maybe a little bit more exciting in terms of who was in it, now the ability to be a mom and write books and tell stories, whether in content for corporations. I'm doing a really cool project with Ferrari right now in the F1 world, telling those kind of stories. That's pretty sexy, but also any kind of storytelling is sexy if you find the story in it.
And looking at media today, right, it's a busy landscape, but it's also such an exciting one. It's such an exciting one, particularly in the way that media and social media allows us to really connect with stories in a different way, be it the audience or the people involved in the actual stories. Are you being pulled into a corner of wanting to shed light in a certain area that you don't feel has been lit up yet through media? Or perhaps another way to ask it is, what a really interesting business, really interesting industry with what's been happening and the growth in the US. But do you feel like part of that story, perhaps it's in the Formula One world, or it is underplayed?
So I think the beauty of all these industries and individual people telling them is that you and I can each be working on our own story about something, Ferrari or whatever, but because of where I come from and where you come from, they're going to be different. So I always encourage people, if you're thinking of writing or putting out a piece of content, or you want to try Substack or blogging or podcasting, nothing should stop you from doing that, because there's never been a better time for people to get out and tell a story. There's no barrier to entry anymore, right? You can publish your own book. You can become your own storyteller, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram, or and that's visually, audibly, or in the written world. And that, I think, is what is so inspiring right now for creators, even if it's a secondary or tertiary thing that is just something you want to try or do. Go do it. Don't let anything stop you.
Yeah, hoist a sail and ride hard.
Yeah.
Is there a project or a story that you've just been like, wow, I need to cover this someday?
I guess I'm really lucky because I've gotten to a point in my career where if I find a nugget, I run a production company, I can pursue it. I can develop it. I'm not bound to a particular network or audience. If I find the right audience, I can try to sell it through. A lot of people come to me and say, can you make this for me? But there are those projects. And actually, for anyone listening, Arthur and I have a really great mutual friend, and she is also an incredible filmmaker. And we had come up with this idea in the children's television space. And we've been working on it together because, again, we found a nugget and we thought, this is exciting. This can help people. We love the message of this. Let's try and put it out there. So I think, again, if you can get to a particular point in your career where you can discern what might do well and what you want to do, go for it.
From the outside, looking at film, TV, media production, there's so much that one doesn't necessarily understand or get to understand from looking at these screenshots of, let's say, your projects. If we go on your website, we check out, well, what's Lindsay been up to?
Oh my God, nothing.
And, oh my God. Oh, wait, we can see Brad Pitt's name on here. Is that Oprah? Is that Charlie XCX? Oh my goodness. So tell us about maybe each of those, and some fun stories would be fantastic.
Yeah, so I think the best one there, let's go Brad Pitt, because, it's Brad Pitt. So
Brad who? Brad who?
Why not Brad Pitt? Have you heard of him? Yeah, Google him. He'll come up. So he has Chateau Miraval, is this beautiful wine producer in France, and it's on his property. There is some, you Brits would say controversy. There's some controversy there. So I don't want to seem naive when I talk about this. So again, if you Google that, there is controversy there. But I got an amazing opportunity to bring in a team because on that property, there is a recording studio, and it's called Miraval Studios. Miraval Studios was this incredible recording studio, I guess, decades ago. Pink Floyd recorded there. Really great artists would go there. And it was a retreat, as you would say. And they would go, they would develop their records, and incredible music would come out of there. And Brad and his partner decided that they would reinvent it and they would bring Miraval Studios back. And they completely rebuilt the studios. Again, if you know anything about Brad, he is an architecture fiend. Everything was done to perfect, pristine detail. And the goal of this was, again, to make music, but also to provide that retreat to different artists when they wanted to create. I was given an opportunity to film a story about this whole venture and this whole project, and to interview Brad and his partner Damien Contard, who is a French musician who's just a beautiful classical musician, composer, everything. And they partnered on this project. And have you ever seen the movie Sideways?
Not yet.
Okay, so it's old, but it takes place in a vineyard. And I remember this movie because you felt like you were getting to see this oasis of land in this vineyard that they were telling the story at. And it was just this moment in time, this gorgeous vineyard telling this great story. Anyway, so we were invited to Miraval to we got to go on every inch of this place and see the land and the studio. We were the first ones let in and see the studio. It was me and a small team. And it was one of the most beautiful oases I've ever been in my entire life. I felt like, talk about storytelling. I was creating all these insane stories in my own head about what was here, the olive trees, the beautiful oval pool, the recording studio that was so peaceful and calm, the vegetables growing off the land. And then, of course, we start filming and Brad shows up in his little dune buggy and he hops off and he's, hey guys, what's up? And just kindness, unassuming, nice guy who welcomed us into his home, essentially. And my favorite part of this story, I've never told it publicly actually, my favorite part of this story is that his chefs and his team prepared this beautiful lunch for us. And we sat in the kitchen, and as we were eating, he came through and he said, hey guys, can I join you for lunch? Absolutely. He wanted to sit with us, get to know us, pour us some of his rosé, which was delicious, and just had the most normal chat, and then went on to film stories there. And we got to turn this beautiful oasis into a piece to highlight something great that is now, other than rosé, coming, the creativity that is coming out of this beautiful property. He had a painter friend who was there who was painting and staying at one of the properties on site. And you go in there as a producer and we couldn't scout it. It was not something I'd seen before. You don't know the story that you're going to tell. My belief is that as a producer, a lot of people have heard the saying, put it together in post, meaning you all get all the stuff and then you figure it out what it's going to look like after. And I think one of my secret weapons is I like to figure it out in pre and do as much work before to understand what you're going to tell and how you're going to tell it so that you're prepared while being really flexible on set, on site, so that you can pivot if necessary. But we didn't know what we were going into. We just knew the story we wanted to tell and hopefully we'd get something great out of there. That was a magical shoot for me in so many ways, getting to meet a legend that so many people think is a legend, going on this beautiful property, getting to hose it down with cameras and hopefully represent it as beautifully on the outside as it is on the inside.
Hose it down. What a great expression. In so many ways, that answers the question. So thank you. And in so many ways, does it put you into the seat of a producer, right? You've got this story, you have a sense of where things might be interesting. But there's a lot of things that are going to be quite literally uncorked when you get there, right?
Look, there's always things that you do as a producer. I think you look at things analytically, you figure out what story you want to tell. I always start, whether it's my story or someone comes to me as a client and says, can you create this? What's your audience? Who are you trying to reach? What's your goal? So many people have access to content these days, which is a great thing. But I think if you try and be too universal, you miss your core audience. And I think those people who understand the message they're trying to tell and who they're trying to reach and their target of how to get there, I think that's a great life skill anyway.
Yeah. And what to you is your favorite part of that process? Is it the research beforehand? Or drinking the bottle?
Yeah, when you're handed on the property a bottle of wine that you're given, it's probably drinking the bottle. But I love all of it. And then I feel like I thrive when I'm on set. I love managing talent, the operations of making it all work. And then I love letting it rip when you're there and finding those little nuggets, whether it's in an interview or I work on scripted and unscripted project as well. And again, to your initial question of how to make something different, or is there anything different I want to do? I always like to find the angle. What's different about this?
And why can I see Oprah's face on your website? Tell us about that. Can we unbox that one?
That was an interview that I did. It was a long time ago, actually. I produced an interview with a Larry King interview with Oprah. And she's such a legend, and I'll never forget. She walked onto set and you could hear, hello, and she just made her presence known. And I laugh when I think about it because it's such a mundane thing, but we had a photographer on set and I was fixing her mic. We had a sound person on set, obviously, but I was fixing her mic because you could see it. And this is crazy. And someone has a photo of me like reaching into the back of Oprah's pants. as I'm just making sure her mic is not seen. And I laugh when I think about that, because you never know what moment you're going to catch in a photograph of someone. But we were busy, we were working. I didn't want it shown on camera. But the thing with doing an interview with Oprah is that you have to be prepared. And there's so much that you could talk to her about. And there's so much, as we know, online. You can find out anything online, whether it's true or not. And she is so smart, and she looks you right in the eye and can have a great conversation with you about anything. So yeah, that was a smart, great interview with two legends that I feel really proud to have produced.
And when one thinks about the titans in the production industry, the real entrepreneurial people in this space, what do you think dictates to be the qualities that you need to be great in that space?
That's a great question. I'm still trying to figure it out. So hopefully I go from good to great as well. But my husband actually strikes me as someone who he's achieved amazing things in his life. But what I love about him most, and what I think the reason I want to say this is because I think this is a common quality among very successful people, is not only curiosity, but acting on curiosity. So if you're curious and you read, it's looking up every little thing you don't know. It's finding a subject and digging in to, wait, I don't totally understand this. How do I get to know it better? So really always fueling your mind, always fueling some bit of yourself that wants to be a little bit better. It doesn't always have to be in a high pressure way. I went to hear Andrew Ross Sorkin speak recently. His great book that's just come out is Incredible Reporter. And he said the same thing about just fueling your own curiosity and always be learning. And I think when people naturally have that, it does help them achieve success.
Thank you for that. That's a wonderful answer. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see people will relate to that in lots of different ways. Confidence. People aren't always born with confidence, and we all live in very varied circumstances. If you're sitting down with someone who you can see they haven't quite got that fit with life yet, they haven't worked out what they're incredible at, they're interested in a few things, where do you push them?
I would push someone to try reasonably, right? You can't just assume you can just give up on making an income and go try something. But I would say try things to know if you like them or don't like them. I think not liking something as you're trying to find yourself is just as valuable as liking something. Because if you can knock something off that list, then it's just as valuable to hone in on where you can find yourself. I think also mentally, a lot of people really do look like they have it all together, and they don't. They just look like it. So you might be feeling scattered, and you might be feeling like you don't have your stuff together, and you may be looking at the 10 people who walk by you on the street and think, wow, they're so put together. They're probably going to this great job or this happy family. It's definitely, unfortunately, not the case. I think it's always nice to remind yourself that this is temporary. You are doing something to figure it out. And not everyone who looks like they have the perfect situation around you does. Again, not that they should be in bad situations, but to remember that we all struggle and it is hard for us. So give it a try. I don't love the saying, fake it till you make it. But there really is something to that saying. The other day, for example, I saw there was an event for two authors that I really like and that I thought would be great to meet both personally and professionally. I'm an author, I'm a producer, they are in my space. And I went to this event and I waited till the end. Everyone else got their book signed and I waited. And instead of just going there and handing my book and getting it signed, I told myself to have some courage, do a hard thing, which is not easy for me. It's not easy for anybody. And I went up there, I introduced myself, I told them who I was, what I'm working on, what my platform is, why I respected them, why I liked them, and how I could see some synergies potentially for the future if they were open to it. And that is hard. That's hard. But I knew I would regret if I hadn't tried that and done that. And you know what? It was great. And there was a positive result that came from it. And there will be to come based on how well that interaction went. I wanted to tell that story because I try and practice what I preach.
And looking at the media landscape, there's always people in a room who are going to be talking about something positive that's happening nearby or something that isn't quite right. And for those that are curious, if you're reading the news, there's a lot of things that can make you a little bit more nervous. But looking at the media landscape, you touched on it, right? Like there's this huge sense that anyone can produce content, not even sense, like it's real. What are you really excited about in terms of what the media landscape has going ahead? And what do you see as potentially being true in the next 5 to 10 years? What directionally are you really excited about?
I think it's hard to ignore how AI is going to come in and impact us and impact the media. I think I'm totally scared of that happening, but also really excited for the knowledge that it can bring us. I think for data points and sifting through data and honing in, I guess I would like to use that to help better tell stories in terms of targeting an audience. I don't really know. I think the unknown is both scary and exciting. Look, realistically, it's hard to get projects made. It's hard when there is so much, but the cream does rise to the top. And I think I'm trying to be comfortable in the uncomfortable of not knowing what's coming and just trying to be aware of what's out there and keep my integrity about the projects that I choose to work on and that I produce. As I said before, you can find a news story, you can find anything to validate an opinion that you have. So I will be very interested to see where media and ethics goes and how we tell stories. I think how we tell stories is exciting to me. Substack didn't exist a few years ago. So how else are writers, producers, creators, musicians, how else are we going to be able to get an audience? I don't know. Let's see.
And also with the internet, it allows people to find out about content organically. It's not purely word of mouth. It's not like we're living in an offline community where content, it's not this product that can exist infinitely.
Yeah. I also, though, I like when I see people reading books. I like people, when we think content, we often think screens, but I like when we are not attached to our screens. I think, yes, I work in the media, but I'm also human and I have young kids and I want to make sure that life is not only about what's coming at us all the time. Let's give our brain a rest and go outside and smell the flowers, literally, because you can't smell them through your screen.
Speaking of books, your book, Romance and Practicalities, what an exciting just realm to be focusing on. The concept of, for those that don't know much about it yet, it involves suggesting to readers that there are 250 questions that they can ask their partner or potentially people who they're dating
or
to work out.
First.
Or for themselves. Could you share 5 real truths around the topic of love and romance that you wish you knew back in the day?
Definitely. I could share so many more than 5, but you're getting me to hone in. So.
Yeah, sorry, but I'm not playing this nice guy.
1, communication is sexy, right? And we can dig into what that actually means later, but actually having conversations with someone you care about is sexy. Number 2, people show you who they are. You just have to believe them, right? So you can see what you want to see in people and you can take maybe what they're saying as their word, but if they don't actually show you any follow through, they're showing you who they are and what their interest level is. Number 3, enjoy the process while you're going through it. I know it can get really stressful, but looking back, I wish I'd enjoyed it a bit more, finding my person. Yes, it was a road. It was a real up and down road, but it did work out well thanks to the system that I created. But enjoying it would have, I think, been a lot more fun. 4, look back at your childhood to really see how it's impacting how you behave as an adult and an adult in your both friendships as well as love and relationships. Is this too deep? Am I going?
No, this is that you're
Okay.
completely.
And number 5, my God, number 5, sex is not a replacement for intimacy.
The brain is whirling with thoughts because people can be quite unfair to themselves, right? Oh, that didn't work out. What a waste of time. No, not remotely. Or like sometimes one can find oneself in a conversation where it's, oh, why didn't it work? And you're like, yeah, for these reasons, but actually a lot of it was great and it's really served me in these ways. You talk about that.
What you're doing there is so good. Okay. We have this natural thing that we as people do. And I get it. I do it too. Everyone does it. If something doesn't work out, we want to trash it. Right?
Totally.
So natural. Be like, that friendship, oh, here's why it was so bad. But actually, don't trash it. Leave it for what it was. Look, it could have ended badly, but you could probably take some good things from it. And if only bad comes from it, you should actually look at it and understand why you hung in for something that was so bad the whole time. I really want to stop the stigma of when people get divorced, of seeing their marriage or long-term relationship as a failure. It's not a failure because it's going to propel you to what you do next. If you choose to be single for the rest of your life, that's okay. That's cool. You should analyze why based on what you came from. If you choose to go into another relationship, don't see that as a failure and jump right into the next. See that as, here's why it didn't work. I'm going to learn from it and choose something that might be better for me now.
You know those little moments that lift your day? A smile, the sun coming out, or a piece of chocolate. Audrey's Chocolates have been handcrafting chocolate for over 70 years. Chocolate to die for. It comes in beautiful boxes that make for the perfect gift. Or bars of chocolate that feed daily joy. Discover your moment of joy by visiting audreyschocolates.co.uk and treat yourself to 10% off using the code TheCollective10. And the other notion I think is particularly interesting around your point is this concept of what's happening is telling you something, right? There's this amazing point someone made. If someone's not replied to you, that is a reply. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people, to your point, and I really recommend the book to everyone, but just this concept of sometimes we can very easily build a narrative of what's happening based on our own history or various things that isn't actually true, or look to see things that we want to be true, but when they're completely not true, and just attaching ourselves. Do you have a comment around that?
Yeah, you reminded me as you were speaking, there's a story I tell in the book, and I was just getting to know the man that would eventually become my husband. And I couldn't figure something out. He was saying something to me that was hurting my feelings unintentionally, and it was not a nasty thing. Truly, he was saying, why are you still single? I can't believe you're still single. Why has no one snatched you up yet? And I was self-conscious about not having found my person after I walked down the aisle in everyone else's weddings. And so I was taking it personally, like there was something wrong with me, why I was still single. And he meant it in a way of, because he felt, wow, I'm so lucky that you're still single. Look, in his mind, it was like, I think you're beautiful. I think you're smart. I think you're all these things. How do I get to have this chance with you? But I was taking it personally. And he was, in his mind, waiting for another shoe to drop. And I realized I was walking right along, it was like south of the river, right along Tower Bridge area. And I had this moment. And again, I talk about this in the book of, oh my God. And I don't want to give away what it all showed and came together, but I had this, oh my God moment of the reason he's making these comments has nothing to do with me. It has to do with something, and I know now what it was. He experienced in his childhood. He was afraid that I would change or become someone that I'm not, when I was taking it personally about not having found my relationship yet. His comments had nothing to do with me. It was all about him. Does that make sense?
Totally.
And so we take things personally based on our lens and our childhood and our perception of ourselves moving around the world. When we actually had a conversation about this, and I told him what was upsetting me, and I said my theory, which I had thought of in this revelatory moment by Tower Bridge, it all made sense to us.
It's so fascinating how we just have no concept of really understanding what people are thinking, right? And people think in such different ways. And to your point around communication, how important that is, because everyone has walked such different paths, and of course they react to so many different things. Two things I'd say that are quite interesting. One is, even with friends constantly, we can so easily feel like someone else's actions are around us, but actually it's probably more often the case about them. And the second thing, this is a point made in another episode of the Collective Institute of Ideas by an ex-FBI agent. And he said this amazing thing.
I loved this episode, by the way.
Thank you. And he said this amazing thing, which is, he's like, Arthur, people, when they act in a certain way, they think that action's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a situation where you've said, my family does this, or for the holidays we do this, or, oh, I do that because of this, and someone looks at you like, wait, what? Huh? And it's that exactly of, oh, that's your normal. That's not my normal. And so when you grow up and you expect to meld your normals, you can't expect that everyone's house on the inside look like yours. So I would say to people, even if you grew up in similar backgrounds, or you were next door neighbors growing up and you meet and you start a romantic relationship, because you have the familiarity doesn't mean you don't have to talk about things. You can't just assume, because you will live your lives assuming things and then go apart because you never talked about them. Two people who share a religion, you still have to talk about your religion and what it means to you, even though the fundamentals of that religion are the same, because you're coming at it from different angles. And people don't always know how to do that. And so back to the book, I've given not only sharing my story, but I interviewed 100 people for this book, whether it's people who've done the system, single people, married people, subject matter experts, celebrities, all these people, to show and teach you as a reader how to communicate. Because sometimes people don't know the question to ask. And I frequently hear, wow, we've never talked about this. We've been together for 10 years. We've never talked about this. Thank you. Thank you for giving me something else to talk about. Or, oh my God, I'm single for the first time and I never even realized I should talk about this with a potential partner. Never even thought about it myself.
It makes sense in a way that people don't talk about certain things, right? Like it's fear-based. And, but if relationship strength, transparency and communication are everything to how much you can get from relationships, and even yourself, right? Like when you learn and you're honest with yourself, and you can have a better, more productive ride. I want to hone in on a few of the questions which really stood out as interesting. The first one would be great.
You jump in, I just want to say something that while communication seems like the easiest thing to do in the world, we're not really taught how to communicate. While being in love and being in a romantic relationship seem like, oh great, I'm going to fall in love. We're not taught how to be in love. We're not taught how to be in a relationship. So the questions that you're going to get to are to help people. We take continuing education for our careers. We have to be taught how to ride a bike, that kind of thing. This is to educate people how to be the best partners to themselves and others that they can be.
Thank you so much for clarifying that, because it's crazy, just the concept. Many people don't know of people in their community where they have necessary relationships that they can really learn from. We don't necessarily In business, businesses often have a North Star metric that they're looking to achieve. But what is that in a relationship? What does that look like? How does that break down? There are so many nuanced ways and parts of our lives, things that we want, expectations exist.
What's modeled for you is what becomes your teacher.
It's hard to know what great looks like without seeing what great looks like, right?
And everyone has a different perception of what great is, right? So like you might be looking for something different for what I'm looking for. So if we're in a relationship together and we don't talk about that, then what are we trying to achieve together?
Look no further, because luckily Lindsay has written the most amazing book which helps you figure out these things. So great question here is, what helps you feel heard and understood?
There's a couple that I spoke with in the book. Actually, I spoke with her, not him, as part of this couple. And this woman was divorced young and got married young and divorced young, and was in a relationship and married to someone else. And the first time when they were dating and they argued, she was used to like an off the rails argue, shouting with her former partner. And her new partner at the time said to her, I want you to come and sit right next to me. And I want our legs to be like touching each other. And it's funny, in my head, I have them sitting side by side on a sofa touching each other, but their legs, I don't know if they were like knee to knee or whatever it was. And he was like, I want us to figure this out quietly. And I want us to look at each other and have it out this way, because I want you to know how much I love you and that I don't want you to feel abandoned during this interaction. And so that question to me, it made me think of that moment in the book of what makes you feel seen or heard. How cool that they had that moment together of arguments can drive people apart. But if we really want to solve this, we want the other person to be seen. So let's solve this in a very caring, civilized way. For that couple, that worked. Someone else might say, if I need to feel seen, I need you to go cook my favorite dinner tonight. And that's okay. The point is that you understand for yourself what makes you feel seen and are able to communicate it with someone else.
What a genius thing to do.
So good.
So there's a few more questions which I will reel off and then maybe we can get some comments on. So how are we different, and could this be a source of future conflict? Wow, what a genius question. What do you need in moments of emotional overwhelm? What's more important to you, stability or risk taking? How do you define emotional safety in a relationship? What makes you feel desired and connected, and how do you want to be loved? The first one there, just the concept of how do you think we're different and how you think that could be a source of future conflict. Genius.
So this is a question that is so unique to whomever is asking it, right? This could be physical differences, this could be cultural differences, this could be religious differences, this could be money differences, this could be, I want children and you don't. That's fundamental. Can we work through this? Could that be a source of future conflict? Yeah, definitely. Or we're different religions, but I actually don't think it will be a source of future conflict because our families are different. We have different beliefs and our political opinions are different. That's pretty polarizing right now. So again, this is step one, why I like this for single people, is that all of the questions that you rattled on in that list, they were all about sort of emotional availability. But even when you're single, you can't answer a question of how we're different. But if you understand yourself, you'll be in a place to really analyze that when you find someone you like.
And there are amazing messages. Love being a commitment, not just a feeling. Resentment often building from expectations that aren't met. And also, you know, how independence is very important in a relationship. Co-independence isn't love.
Something that you said, resentment building from expectations that aren't met. So resentment's pretty dangerous in a relationship. But if you don't set your expectations, I don't mean in a nasty body, here's a list of things I need, but if you don't set a baseline level of expectations, you will be disappointed. If you don't communicate your expectations, you will be disappointed and become resentful. But that starts with you for making your needs, your desires, being so comfortable with yourself and with this other person. That shouldn't be hard to do.
And also, it's all well feeling disappointed that needs weren't met, but the other person might not really understand the complexity as to like why that was a need. Like, again, people are very different.
Expectations are sort of the problem there, right? So if you are hoping that your partner takes out the trash every night before bed and you're like secretly going to bed angry that it's not done, but you think your partner should just assume to do that or know to do that because it bothers you, that falls to you. You have to say to them, hey, kindly, there's one thing that I really would appreciate if it could be on your list versus mine. Can you just take out the trash before we go to bed? That's it. Now, they have to do it. They have to want to do it. They have to understand that this is real for you. That one little thing makes you want to have sex at night because you feel like your needs, to your question, are being met.
You also make the point about how important questions are continually. People want to feel seen and loved, right? These are like human, natural things that we all want. But equally, sometimes conflict can be the source of so much value. Do you have views around how people can do conflict good? Be good conflictors?
I do. I really do. I think so. One question that I get probably the most feedback on, that is people's favorite, hones right in on that. It's how do we argue? How do you argue? How do I argue? And if I'll give me as an example. I like to talk things out. I like to go full force. If we disagree on something, I kind of want to work it out right there. Like my mind is spinning and I'm working fast. And my husband's the opposite. He wants to digest. He's the finance, numbers, maths guy. He wants to spreadsheet this argument in his mind and work out all possible cells and take a deep breath and then come back. And when you put me against, that doesn't work. That does not work because I'm coming here and he's pulling back. And so when you answer the question of how do you argue and you understand how you do it and how your partner does it, when you actually argue, you can find a way of arguing so you're not arguing about how you argue. You can argue about what the problem is. So I get it out and then take a minute. And instead of just going, I know he needs a minute. He does his thing, I do my thing. We all take a deep breath. When he organizes his thoughts, then we come back together and we're like, okay, let's discuss. So I had a minute to get it out. He had a minute to take a step back. And then we come together. And then we're not frustrated with how the other one's argue pattern is different. We can hone in on what the actual issue is.
And sometimes, yeah, totally. Thanks for sharing that. And sometimes part of it is actually just being able to share things, right? Being heard rather than necessarily logistical parts of the equation.
I think too, if you find someone who you really do feel like you're 1,000,000% yourself with, that's such a huge win. Life is hard enough. So if you feel like you can't be yourself or you're pretending or you feel certain pressures with someone that don't feel right to you, then that really is an indication that you might not be with the right person or that there are things you have to communicate with them about.
Yeah, Susan Quilliam, who kindly came on this podcast, talked about really got to find someone that you want to do the work with, right? You want to dig deep, you want to be patient, and there's a lot to be said around that. And lots behind that. Is that like respect for the person? How do you build that?
She said something like, if you need to want to care about what they're going through, right? So if you're in a relationship with someone and you realize, oh, I don't really actually care. I'd rather be off with my friends right now than helping them to solve this problem. Then that's a pretty big indication of something. Why? Why are you feeling that way?
Yeah. And it definitely makes one think that, that there is space you have to make space when you're in that relationship to do your own thinking with yourself, let alone with that person. We're now going to move into the quick fire questions.
Okay.
3 things you get joy from.
Hearing my children laugh, getting my hair blown dry, and hot weather.
Which are you far away from now?
We are going on holiday in about 4 weeks to warm weather. And we're in London right now. We've had 2 days of cold weather. I'm just already done with it.
Yeah, amen. A mantra you want to embrace now would be?
I choose happiness.
One unusual thing that gives you pleasure?
Watching Love Island.
A favorite book, film, or artist that isn't obvious?
Oscar Wilde is my favorite playwright.
Best advice ever received?
You do you.
The world works in a certain way today. If you were given $50 million budget that could push any message or unravel this phenomenal story, what would that be?
At this moment, I really want to teach people how to have happy, healthy love, first of yourself, and then with others. And I guess if I had $50 million to do it, I would do it from somewhere beautiful, somewhere warm, with a blow dry while watching Love Island with my family and friends. And I would use the money to put people in happy situations with good food to nourish their bodies, nourish their souls, nourish their hearts, and obviously copies of my book.
Lindsay, thank you so much today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.